I'm Jordan Raynor, and this is the Word Before Work. Today we're reading from 1 Corinthians 9, 22 through 23. Here's what it says. I have become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel. Again, that was 1 Corinthians 9, 22 through 23. Today concludes our 5-week series exploring biblical principles for working in environments that are increasingly hostile to the ways of the Lord. Today's passage contains the final principle I want us to explore. Here it is. Christians are called to become all things to all people for the sake of the advancement of the gospel. One of the reasons why God has you, quote, working outside the camp, end quote, is because it is through the work of mere Christians and not primarily religious professionals that God is seeking and saving the lost in our post-Christian context. But to make disciples at work, you, like Paul, must become all things to all people, doing everything you can other than sin to build relationships with non-believers. This could look like having lunch with a different coworker once a week just to get to know your colleagues personally, or maybe it's following your office's favorite sports team, even though you're not that into sports, just so that you've got something to talk about with your coworkers on Monday mornings. There are a million practical outworkings of this principle of becoming all things to all people. But let me draw out one more, a controversial application that, if you haven't already, you will certainly have a chance to practice very soon, unfortunately. Let's pretend for a second that a woman that you work with shares that they're now identifying as a man, and they ask that you start referring to them by the male pronouns he and him. Now, as a Christian, you hold to a biblical stance that sexuality is defined by God alone. See Genesis 1:27, see Matthew 19:4 through 5, etc., etc. So what do? Some faithful Christians I respect argue that you should refuse to use your friend's chosen pronouns, as doing so would give the appearance that you condone that sin. But according to one of the more serious studies on this topic, one Christian researcher found that, quote, none of my interviewees were inclined to interpret a Christian's pronoun hospitality as an automatic indication that this Christian agreed with everything about the way in which the trans person expressed their gender, end quote. Conversely, another leading expert on this topic found that, quote, people typically view using their pronouns and chosen name as a basic act of courtesy, and listen to this, respect that's necessary for continuing relationship, end quote. With all that in view, and with the principle of becoming all things to all people for the sake of the gospel in mind, I would encourage you carefully to practice pronoun hospitality in the workplace and use your friend's chosen pronouns even though you disagree with their decision. Now, that does not mean that you never confront their sin, but I pray that we, like Jesus, would be relational first and confrontational second. See John 8, 1 through 11, so that by all possible means we might save some. My friend, I pray that this series has been incredibly encouraging and helpful to you. Your workplace is likely to become less and less friendly to the ways of Jesus. But I pray these principles will help you be faithful to Christ and his mission as we all work in exile together. Today's devotional only scratches the surface of how God's word connects to our work. If you want to go deeper, sign up for my free 20-day devotional called The Word Before Work Foundations at twbwfoundations.com. These email devotionals are designed to help you gain a rich understanding of the biblical narrative of work, how exactly your work matters for eternity, and what those truths mean for how we ought to work today. Sign up right now, again, totally free at twbwfoundations.com.